Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
My name is Gary Fildes and I'm the director of the Kielder Observatory in Northumberland, the United Kingdom. And I've came here to sunny California, to Pasadena, for Space Fest 2014. And the reason I've came here is because some of the most important people in the history of space exploration have gathered here, including men who walked on the moon. Born in New Jersey in 1935, Rusty Schweickart is a research scientist and former US Air Force fighter pilot and NASA astronaut. Schweickart was chosen in NASA's third astronaut group and is best known as the lunar module pilot on the Apollo 9 mission. This was the first manned test flight of the lunar module, on which he performed the first in-space test of the portable life support system used by the Apollo astronauts who walked on the moon. In total, Rusty spent over 241 hours in space.
I was one of the members of the third group of astronauts that was selected back in 1963, and I ended up flying as lunar module pilot on Apollo 9, and then I became the backup commander on the first Skylab manned mission, Skylab 2.
So you were actually on Apollo 9 then?
Yeah, I flew Apollo 9 as the lunar module pilot. That was a 10-day mission in Earth orbit. It was the first flight of the lunar module, and the first time that we had used the new Apollo suit to do an EVA. I went outside on a spacewalk with the backpack, the portable life support system, and checked out the suit and the backpack and transfer over to the, externally maneuvering around the spacecraft and that sort of thing.
What did you find the most challenging part of an EVA from spacewalking?
Well, up until I went out using the new Apollo suit, the design of the suit itself had given us a lot of problems on Gemini. It was a very different design. It did not have the convolutes, the little tubes at the joints, at the elbow and the shoulder and the knee, and so bending your legs or your arms in the earlier design suit turned out to be a lot of work, and we ended up with fogging on the inside of the helmet, and guys were sweating like crazy. It was a lot of work. The Apollo suit was designed much, much better. It worked beautifully on our mission and, on all the lunar missions after that.
You'd mentioned one of the most scariest experiences you had was not actually walking in space, but moreover being inside of that vacuum chamber. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Rusty?
Yeah, people always think that, the stuff you do on the ground is much safer than what you do in flight. But in fact, it's the other way around, at least when you're testing something like the spacesuit. Because when you're testing something on the ground, generally it's the first time or maybe the early days of testing it, whereas when you do it in flight, you've already done it in vacuum chambers on the ground 4 or 5 times, so all of the wrinkles are worked out by the time you get in space. But on the ground, you got number one, it's a new suit, it's a new backpack, all the systems are new, and you got all the failure modes that can happen in flight, but you're in a vacuum chamber. In space, the vacuum is perfect. It's never going to fail. But on the ground, that vacuum chamber has got as many failure modes as your suit and the backpack. So the vacuum chamber itself was a bit of a threat on the ground. So the most dangerous time is actually often in the ground testing.
What do you think was the most profoundly impactful experience that you had when you were either inside one of the modules or when you were actually doing an EVA?
Yeah, well, in my case, I think there's basically no question, because when I went outside the spacecraft on Apollo 9 to test the backpack and the suit, when I started up a handrail, I had to go up a handrail and across to the command module to validate that we could, actually maneuver and control ourselves. I only got a few feet up the handrail when the movie camera that Dave Scott was using to film that jammed. And so he said, "Hey, wait a minute, the camera just jammed." And Jim McDivitt over here said, "Okay, Dave, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to try and fix the camera, and Rusty, stay right where you are." And so Dave took 5 minutes, and I took 5 minutes time out, and I just took the opportunity to say, "Okay, great, I'm up here in space. This is my 5 minutes to really let this experience come in as a human being, not as an astronaut, not thinking about what came next, but just to say, I'm a human being up here in space. What is this all about?" And all of these really important questions kind of came flooding in, unexpected. I mean, like, how did I get here? Not via Saturn V, but the evolution of humanity and the invention of the machines that we've invested in, and that combination of human beings and the machines have enabled us to begin moving out from the planet. And this is obviously just the beginning of that evolution of life out of planet Earth into space. And all of that kind of came flooding in, given that 5 minutes with nothing to do. So being unemployed in that kind of an environment is incredible.
Excellent way to put it.
Yeah.
Rusty Schweickart, thank you ever so much. That was absolutely wonderful.
You're very welcome. Thank you.